Good morning, everybody. I'm sure that we'll have folks kind of trickling in here over the next 5 or 6 minutes, but wanted to welcome everyone to November's Coffee and Conversations. We're so glad to have you with us. Coffee and Conversations is a joint effort of the Carsey School of Public Policy here at the University of New Hampshire. The New Hampshire Bureau of Education and Training and the New Hampshire Association of Certified Public Managers. And we're so glad to have you with us this month. Today, we have Representative Matt Wilhelm with us, a graduate of the Carsey School, who is going to discuss the service year commission that he chaired. And we are going to get that presentation started shortly. Let me bring my screen up and we will get this started. Matt, welcome. So glad to have you with us.
Hey, thanks so much, Jordan, and good to be with you. Always great to be able to spend some time with my friends at the Carsey School. Like you said, I'm a state representative representing Manchester wards 1, 2, and 3. I say it's the best district in the state. That is factual. That is an objective fact. But really, it's been a tremendous honor in the last couple years to serve in the New Hampshire House, our citizen legislature. I started my professional career straight out of college. I went to Plymouth State University for my undergrad in communications and political science. Wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to do with my life, but knew that I wanted to be of service to others. I had some friends who had participated in a year of national service through Americorps. And they encouraged me to consider doing that as a kind of a post-grad plan. To this day, it was the very first and the very best decision that I ever made in my career. I served 2 years with City of New Hampshire. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And then got my master's degree at UNH's Carsey School of Public Policy. I've got my mug this morning, so we're ready to go. And met my wife, Jody, doing city year as well. And we're raising 2 future national service members in our house. It's Ben there. He's 7 now, and Rosie is 5. Let's go to the next slide. So just to get going and kind of get everybody on the same page, there's some terminology that we're going to use. And one of the things that within the national service movement that we could probably do a better job is with branding and with, using consistent language. But when we talk about a service year or civilian national service, we're talking about a paid opportunity to develop real world skills through hands-on service. You may know of Americorps, the Peace Corps, City Year, Vista, Americorps Victim Assistance Program. There's so many really great programs, and we'll be hearing from Gretchen Stallings, the Executive Director of Volunteer New Hampshire, who will tell us a little bit more about that, all the opportunities that are available here in the Granite State. But what you should know is that a service year before, during, or after college, which is, full-time, 10 or more months of service, it really gives young adults the chance to make an impact in one's community. It might be their own community. It might be a totally different community. A lot of folks travel across the country to get to know a different part of the country. It's a great opportunity to gain perspective as well as experience, hands-on experience. And it's a good opportunity to prepare for college or career. Most service year programs receive at least some level of funding from the federal government. Peace Corps is that international service brand that you'll know. And then Americorps is the most common brand of domestic national service. Let's go to the next slide. So, to tell you a little bit more about national service opportunities right here in New Hampshire, I'm excited to introduce Gretchen Stallings. Gretchen served on the Service Year Workforce Commission, which we'll be talking about in a few minutes, in her capacity as the Executive Director of Volunteer New Hampshire, which is our federally mandated and governor-appointed state service commission. And I'm proud to serve on that board representing the New Hampshire House. But Gretchen, thanks for joining us, and please take it away.
Hi, good morning, Matt. Thanks so much for inviting me. As you know, national service and service is something that I'm really passionate about. I was excited to serve on the commission, and I'm also a very proud Vista alumnus. I am the executive director of Volunteer New Hampshire, and I'll start just kind of sharing about Volunteer New Hampshire. Volunteer New Hampshire is New Hampshire's state service commission. New Hampshire has a rich tradition of service, and it spans the decades. And Volunteer New Hampshire is pleased to be able to continue to steward that long, dedicated history of service in New Hampshire and to help to keep folks engaged in serving. And as part of that work, we receive funding from our national or federal partners at Americorps. We assist the state by working with local nonprofits and state agencies to develop Americorps programs that really meet the highest needs of the citizens and communities of our state. We serve as a resource to nearly 2,000 Americorps seniors serving in programs across the state. And additionally, we serve the nearly 400 Americorps and Americorps Vista members that are serving in the state. We run grant competitions each year, a couple of times a year, to assist with getting the resources out to create the programs. And then we work with the programs really from start all the way to implementation. So, and with recruiting members, ensuring that the members are really fully engaged in the projects that they're assisting across the state, and just generally as a resource to all engaged in national service and organizations that would like to have national service members serve, would like to look at a particular area of concern for the state and help to find partners to create programming, and also just to help folks be able to engage in any kind of service to communities. So we also have a Get Connected site, or on our site, we have a Get Connected program, which is sort of a volunteer match program. So happy to talk more with any of you personally about any of this. So I certainly want to serve as a resource to you for learning about national service opportunities and other volunteer and service year kinds of opportunities that you might be interested in. Currently, Volunteer New Hampshire has 8 Americorps state programs that we provide funding to, and the kinds of programming really varies. We have City of New Hampshire, which is working in the Manchester schools. We have a couple of different environmental stewardship programs that really work to keep our lands safe and well kept and accessible to us, and keep our waterways clean and healthy. We have a new program, a new Scout Reach program, a new program that's partnering to support those who are engaged in education and working to become teachers. Really quite a breadth of programming. And in addition, we work to help, and those are Americorps State. In addition, we work to help cultivate other kinds of program development. And we have a new Vista Food Security Initiative that we've been stewarding and partnering with folks across the state to develop. And just earlier this year, in response to the global pandemic that we're engaged in, we were happy to be able to partner to help with the thinking around the development of New Hampshire's COVID Community Care Corps. So national service and service is really the space that we love to work in. We steward volunteerism. And we're just so grateful for the work of the Service Year Workforce Development Commission. We are also really dedicated to employing the recommendations and eager to embrace the opportunities that present as a result of the work. So thank you for having me, and happy to answer any questions as needed.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gretchen, and thanks for your partnership through this process. I think there are so many different opportunities here in the state of New Hampshire for folks to serve full time. And, just a bit about my experience. So after college, which was 15 years ago this fall, I joined City Year to lead a diverse team of Americorps members serving in high need, under-resourced public schools. And my teammates came from all different backgrounds and different walks of life from all across the country, different races, religions, sexual orientations, socioeconomics, work styles. And we worked together to keep kids in school and on track to graduate. We focused on a target list of students and worked with them on their attendance, their behavior, and course performance, which are kind of early indicators that a young person might drop out of school. It was a really transformative experience for me. I, hadn't ever really had that intensive an experience with other people who weren't quite like me, other Americans who, wanted to be of service to their community, their country, or often, a different community. So many of them came from out of state. And I kind of got hooked on this big idea of a paid voluntary year of national service that could be truly transformative if it became, sort of a common expectation and experience of young people in America. But I also recognize that that takes a lot of explaining, and it takes, if you haven't done it or you don't know people who have done it, it can be tough to kind of garner support and enthusiasm for it. I think it's something that kind of makes sense in people's heads. But I knew that when I joined our legislature that there would be some opportunities to advance a discussion, but the first step would be to educate my legislative colleagues and other leaders in the state about kind of the power and potential of thinking about national service as a public policy tool. Let's go to the next slide. So there were two things going on over the last biennium here. One is we had a slew of presidential candidates that were coming through, and when they reached out to me as a state rep, I knew that one of the things I wanted to do is really engage them in a conversation about national service. And so I invited some of my friends who had also participated in service year programs in the state. And, we talked about it. We really wanted to hear what folks' vision was for advancing Americorps, the Peace Corps, and putting more opportunities like that out there, especially when there's so much distrust and division. This is a real bipartisan solution that candidates can lead with to engage young people around the future of their country, because we know that folks who participate in these programs continue to volunteer in their community. They become folks who step up and say, I want to serve on the school board or on city councils. They lead community service initiatives at their businesses. There's so many kind of ripple effects that come out of these experiences. So it was my real pleasure to be able to engage these candidates in this conversation over the last cycle. Next slide. The other thing that we did was, found some ways to introduce this, this concept of national service as a public policy tool to my colleagues in the legislature. And we looked for opportunities to do that. There's a day every year when Americorps members come to the State House, had the opportunity to address them and, hopefully plant some seeds about, they too, if they stick around New Hampshire with 400 state reps, that some of them could be sitting in those seats and actually voting, for policies to benefit their communities moving forward. I mentioned that I serve on the board of Volunteer New Hampshire, went down to DC to advocate for national service. with other members of the Volunteer New Hampshire Board. And, let's go to the next slide. I think the big thing that we wanted to figure out is how do we start this conversation, rooted in actual policy that can move the ball forward on some aspect of New Hampshire that needed support. And so knowing that, there's a real workforce crisis in the state of New Hampshire today. For those who don't know, by 2025, more than 2 out of 3 jobs in the state will require some sort of post-secondary education. To meet this growing need, an additional 50,000 New Hampshire citizens are going to require, a high-value post-secondary credential, which is beyond normal growth. So as we recognize that as a challenge, many partners across New Hampshire have embraced this 65 by 25 goal, and this is from the community college system of New Hampshire. It's the concept that by 2025, at least 65% of New Hampshire citizens will hold a high-value credential. That's an associate's degree, bachelor's degree, some sort of industry-recognized certificate or license. The goal has been adopted by state government. It's something that everybody's kind of rallied around as a benchmark that we should be striving towards. And state governments embraced it, state agencies, university system, community college system, business and industry leaders, and nonprofits. If we're able to reduce New Hampshire's attainment gap, we're going to be able to, really move the ball forward on our kind of long-term economic prospects. So meeting those workforce needs, it's also going to increase opportunities for youth and families. Post-secondary education and access to good jobs, those are strong economic and social levers. They provide opportunity and social mobility for individuals and families, as well as strong workforce for New Hampshire's business and industry. But right now, too few of our citizens aspire to higher ed. We also have an aging workforce, a diminishing number of school-age children that really pose some demographic challenges. And then, I probably don't have to tell this group, but tuition costs and student debt, continues to rise in our state, and employers perceive a kind of a mismatch between what graduates are prepared to do and the skills that employers require in the workplace. So these challenges have led to growing inequity of opportunity for individuals and families where, too many residents lack access to the education and training that they need in order to reach their full potential and to meet employers' demands for a skilled workforce. Service year positions, and this is the opportunity that we saw here, the service year positions are a form of workforce development that combined work-based learning and career development with a real motivating social purpose. So regardless of background, evidence shows that young people in full-time service, they learn skills and successful workplace behaviors and experience, specific fields. They're in a position to network and they develop the pride that comes with a paycheck. So, knowing that there's that research that shows the direction and sense of purpose developed through a service year experience can inspire a young person to pursue post-secondary credential or degree and or head down a specific career path. We felt like the first step to start educating, the 424 citizen legislators was to establish a service year workforce commission to, one, research existing career pathway models between programs, higher ed institutions and employers, including, taking a look at hiring and admission policies, credit for service, scholarship for service, and residency requirements. And then also to make recommendations to support the expansion of career pathways from programs to post-secondary education and employment in order to support New Hampshire's future workforce needs. We introduced the bill in the 2019 session. It passed through the House Education Committee unanimously, and then was on the consent calendar in the House. Moved over to the Senate, passed through the Education and Workforce Committee unanimously, and also unanimously passed the House. Next slide. And then in July 2019, we had a bill signing with, representatives from, across the national service field, as well as higher ed and business and industry, where, the governor enthusiastically signed it into law, and, we were off to the races. Next slide. The Service Year Workforce Commission is made up of representatives from government, from higher ed, and from the nonprofit sector. We had a really talented team, including Dr. Rebecca Glauber from the university system, Stephanie Lesperance from Campus Compact, Dr. Chuck Lloyd, who's from the Community College System of New Hampshire. He's up at White Mountain Community College in Berlin. Pon Nitichen, who's with City or New Hampshire. She's the executive director there, and she was Governor Sununu's appointee. Dr. Debbie Skiri with the New Hampshire College and University Council, Gretchen, who we just heard from, and Michael Trammell from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. This was our first meeting. I wanted to make sure that we got a picture of it. So, of course, we're going to include it in this slide. Okay, next slide. And we were so excited. We started doing work in 2019. We had an interim report, and one of the things we said we were going to do was take the Service Year Workforce Commission out of the State House, which ended up perfectly aligning with a global pandemic. So we did not hit the road in the way that we thought we were going to. And, to be completely honest, we, felt like there were going to be some challenges in prioritizing this work over the immediate needs that Granite Staters were facing, and that, frankly, all of our institutions were facing as we adjusted to this new normal. So what we did do is postponed the tour and, focused in on COVID-19. Next slide. So when the pandemic shut down the state at the end of March 2020, the commission postponed and then canceled our listening tour. And despite the change in direction, the commission came back together virtually in June. Under the governor's executive order, we were able to meet over Zoom to make specific COVID-19 recommendations to the governor's office on economic recovery and response, also known as GOFER. And we did a few things. We wrote a letter ourselves. We worked with the Volunteer New Hampshire Board of Directors, the executive committee, to issue a letter to the governor with some recommendations. And then we got close to 100 of my House colleagues to also send a letter to the governor, encouraging to invest in national service as a strategy for addressing, supporting communities during the COVID-19 pandemic. The CARES Act funding that we requested and ultimately received, we ended up receiving $1.5 million. It included grants to support existing Americorps programs and Senior Corps programs across the state. Included some startup funds to launch the COVID-19 Community Care Corps, which is a new Americorps program launched by Goodwill Industries of Northern New England, and the COVID-19 Serve and Learn Fellows Program, which is being administered by our friends here with the University of New Hampshire's Carsey School for Public Policy. To tell us a little bit more about the Serve and Learn program, I'm excited to hand things over to my former professor from when I was in grad school, who's become a friend and really a trusted partner in this work to expand national service in the state, Dr. Dan Bromberg.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it. And Jordan, if you don't mind advancing the slide, that'd be great. So just briefly, my work in service actually, it started in a similar way as Matt and Gretchen had mentioned, but mine was much more at the local level. I started with something called the Baltimore City Teaching Fellowship Program, which was a localized fellowship to be in the public schools in the Baltimore City area. And similar to Matt, that really did change my career trajectory and initiated my desire to work in the public service. For me, it turned into working in higher education and pursuing both research and service focused on making the public service serve both professionals, but also constituents in a much more effective manner. So at the Carsey School, all of our master's degrees are for public service professionals and those that want to engage in the public service. So I think this idea of us developing a curriculum and developing a program that responds to the needs of those engaged in public service during one of the most challenging times in our nation's history was really an opportunity for us to brainstorm and figure out what we can make work to serve these professionals that have been doing so much for us. So we could flip the slide here. So what did we do? So first I'll just say the Carsey School, right? We have research, we have outreach, and we have academic programs. So you pull the three of these together, and it really does create a unique opportunity, not only for our current students, but to pull in a bunch of folks that otherwise didn't have access or potentially just weren't in higher ed at the current time. So we think we kind of offer this unique combination of different aspects. So we could flip. So we already have a bunch of partnerships in place with all of these service providers across the state and nationally. So this is already something that we have endorsed as a school. We offer various scholarships depending on the partner that you work with. And we're really proud of those. We're really proud that we're able to support folks that are in service, provide them with extra dollars to come to the University of New Hampshire and study with us at the Carsey School. So that initiative had already started, and the Serve and Learn program, we really feel, builds upon that initiative. So what is Serve and Learn? So first, we're able to offer free and discounted credit-bearing courses to those who in the public service activities have been materially changed by COVID-19. So they're engaged in that response, and their work is really looking quite different now than it did 9 months ago. And how they're responding to the pandemic has really been affected, and they have been affecting our communities, holding our communities together. So we are offering one free January term course for students to register to, and we're also going to be offering scholarships to courses in the spring, which I'll talk about in a second. We're creating, can we flip back, Jordan, sorry. We've created an engaged curriculum that encourages reflective practice while drawing connections to policy response that foster inclusive participation and social equity. We recognize that this is a time that people need to create space where they could reflect on what they've done over the last 9 months, but then create those connections, to curriculum that talks about policy and how we can see that policy in action. Next slide, thanks. So we have Serve and Learn coursework. We have public engagement in communities using an equity lens as a reflective practitioner. That's going to be that January term course, which is free of charge to those of you that have been engaged in COVID response efforts. And then we have these 3 other courses that we're going to be offering in the spring that will be at a reduced tuition rate that will scholarship some of that tuition for those students. So 2 of them, one of them, Care Work, Public Policy, and COVID-19. That's at the graduate level. And then Research for Political and Policy Action and Wicked Problems, Puzzles in Public Policy. Those are at the undergraduate level, and those are being offered through the University of New Hampshire at Manchester. So what we're trying to do here is create pathways for those of you that already have a bachelor's degree, but also for those of you that don't have a bachelor's degree yet and are looking for access. And the nice part of these offerings is, like I said, they're credit bearing, and they will all lead seamlessly into, either a graduate or undergraduate degree. These are the programs that we currently have them connected to, but you're gaining credit at the University of New Hampshire that you could then use as a pathway into higher education, and helping to break down some of those barriers that Matt had just talked about. So I think with that, I'll turn it over back to Matt.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Dan. Super excited about the courses that you and your team have put together, and excited about, how it can be, not just really helpful during this time, but perhaps be a model for how we move forward in terms of trying to keep folks who are alumni of these programs, whether they served here in New Hampshire or they served elsewhere. They're looking to pursue, whether it's an undergraduate degree or a graduate degree, that, there might be some specific courses that fit their experience in service. I think, it's definitely something that we're excited about, and excited to build upon in the months ahead. While it's been challenging, right, to prioritize the commission's charge over the immediate challenges facing our community, we as a commission really believed it would be still helpful to hear virtual testimony from leaders across the country who are leveraging national service as a workforce development strategy. And to that end, the commission decided to pass some final recommendations for the consideration of leaders within state government, including Volunteer New Hampshire, our state's governor-appointed service commission. The first recommendation is to extend the commission's work by establishing a new service year workforce committee under Volunteer New Hampshire's existing governance structure. The hope is to continue to engage leaders from the field, from higher ed, from state government, and employers. And that includes furthering engaging key stakeholder groups, including service year members and alumni and program staff, as well as high school students, teachers, guidance counselors, administrators, college students, professors, administrators, admission staff, and career services staff, as well as senior leadership and human resources professionals across all different sectors, public, private, and nonprofit. It also includes inviting service year programs operating successful models in other communities to join our committee meetings. There's an opportunity for us to really, research the program's impact, the profile of prospective members, the career path of alumni, so that we really understand each program's strength, their weaknesses, their opportunities, as they relate to post-secondary ed and workforce development in the state of New Hampshire. A few examples of that, Youth Build is a national program that's operating in 40 plus states across the country, but not in New Hampshire. And, it's a program that gives opportunity youth, folks who are out of school and out of work, including many people of color, to teach them how to swing a hammer and to work on a construction site and build affordable housing for their neighbors. I think it's a great example of a program that would help to address some specific needs that New Hampshire has, as well as think about workforce development strategies for an underserved population. There's also some opportunities here for us to partner with some national organizations like the Service Year Alliance, which is kind of an action tank for national service. They have a service year impact community program, which is kind of a learning community of folks that are sharing best practices of how they are really starting to get traction on national service in their community. And we may decide as a state that we want to do that. We may also decide that Hillsborough County, which is currently home to about half of all national service members in our state, that that we really want to focus there. Or we may decide that here in Manchester, where 1 in 3 Americorps positions are currently housed, that we want to just develop some specific strategies for Manchester. But it's definitely a conversation we need to have if we want to move the needle on this. And then we also need to really be thinking about identifying and removing barriers that may be keeping individuals, especially young Granite Staters, as well as young people who are from historically marginalized communities. We got to figure out what are those barriers from them participating in a service year program, earning an affordable post-secondary degree or credential, and or pursuing a meaningful career in the state. And then the final thing I'll say is, what the recommendation includes encouraging the Volunteer New Hampshire Board of Directors to really prioritize funding one or more Americorps planning grants to establish a new service year program or programs focused on workforce development outcomes, with special consideration given to rural communities, as well as opportunity youth, which we just talked about. Next slide. So recommendation number 2, is focused on higher ed. And I think, the Serve and Learn Fellowship Program, that's one example of how we might be able to model this moving forward. We need to explore a full range of strategies, though, to attract more alumni to enroll in institutions of higher ed across the state, including offering credit for service, scholarship for service, as well as preferential admission policies. That could be waiving the application fee for alumni, a lot like what the Carsey School of Public Policy does. And I just want to lift them up as an example. This I know may sound like a commercial for the Carsey, but I am biased since I've got my master's degree from them. But there's a really great program called the Siegel Americorps Education Award Matching Program. And one of the things we didn't talk about is, in addition to the living stipend that AmeriCorps members get, they also get an education award that is equal to the value of the Pell Grant, which is currently right around $6,000. There are institutions of higher ed across the country including a few here in New Hampshire, that match that education award. So that $6,000 actually becomes $12,000, or if you did 2 years of service, your $12,000 becomes $24,000. We think that encouraging colleges and universities across our state to match that ed award, one, makes those colleges stand out. As an alum is looking as to where to spend their education award. We also think that colleges and universities want these types of students on their campus anyways. These are the kind of service-driven and community-minded young people that they want to be part of their student body, to engage in community service programs on campus, and who they're going to really proud of as leaders once they graduate. The Carsey School matches the education award for all Americorps members. And I also want to highlight my alma mater, my undergrad, Plymouth State University also offers one of those scholarships, and Antioch University for their graduate level programs. They also do that. I also want to highlight that there's the Paul D. Coverdell Fellows Program for returned Peace Corps volunteers, and that's another scholarship program that colleges and universities can opt into. Antioch and Southern New Hampshire University are the two that are participating right now from New Hampshire. Next slide. Recommendation number 3 is centered on employment and what we can be doing to really encourage people to pursue employment after their service year experience here in the Granite State. One of the things that we'd like to do is increase the number of employers that are part of Employers for National Service. And launched in 2014, Employers of National Service connects returned Peace Corps volunteers and Americorps alumni with leading employers from the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. The initiative builds a talent pipeline and provides employers with access to a dedicated, highly qualified, and mission-oriented pool of potential employees. Every employer from the nonprofit, public, and private sectors, they're encouraged to consider the value that service year alumni can add to their organization. And today, all across the country, over 600 employers have signed on to recruit and hire these really talented young people for their skills and service experience. In addition to national and international companies, nonprofit organizations, and federal government agencies hiring in the Granite State, there are some New Hampshire-based employers that have joined Employers for National Service. Families in Transition and New Horizons in Manchester, a nonprofit, is part of the program. First Robotics in Manchester, also part of the program. Indian Stream Health Center in Colebrook, Lamont Hanley and Associates in Manchester, Student Conservation Association, another Americorps program in Charlestown, and the Timberland Company in Stratham. They're all part of Employers of National Service, as well as Volunteer New Hampshire. We kind of expected them to be on board, and Work Opportunities Unlimited in Dover as well. So we think by ramping up the number of employers that are part of this will send a signal to Americorps alumni that if you're looking for a state to grow your career, there are so many employers that really value the experience that you had through national service. One other point I just want to make on this is, something that it feels like the field is really starting to talk about, only just starting now, but it's aligning programs training and member development with the structure of registered apprenticeships and pre-apprenticeship programs. Another one of my Carsey School colleagues when I was in the program is Emily Zine, and Emily is also an Americorps alum, and she managed an Americorps program for a while, and she's at the Community College System of New Hampshire now, managing their Apprenticeship New Hampshire program. And so I'm looking forward to having some conversations with her and exploring, what the experience of some of our members are in some of these programs and how it might serve as a pre-apprenticeship, so that we can encourage some of these alumni to go on to the community college system and get their associate's degree or some sort of credential. Next slide. I'm really excited about this, and this one has been a long time coming, but we worked with Dartmouth College's Dolly Lab to develop an interactive online resource hub for young people looking to explore opportunities to serve and learn and or earn in the state of New Hampshire. So we are looking forward to a January or February launch. But the platform that they've developed is really cool. There are going to be places where people can learn about serving through a service year program, learning at an institution of higher ed that perhaps matches the Ed Award or has some sort of preferential admission policy, and then build your career at an employer of national service. And so that'll be a place where all under one roof. We're thinking it's going to be called servelearnearnh.org, or if we can convince some folks at the State House that I should get a .gov address, maybe we'll do that. But excited about what's been developed there, and they're continuing to do work on that over the next few weeks. Next slide, please, Jordan. And then recommendation number 5, our 5th and final, is to advocate for the bipartisan CORE Act. And we think there are going to be some opportunities in the next COVID-19 federal stimulus bill to do that. We think that there can be some leadership coming out of Governor Sununu's office to initiate a sign-on letter in support of the CORE Act through the National Governors Association. There has, long been a bipartisan tradition of support for these programs, and these organizations really need the relief right now. I'll tell you a little bit about what's in there, but and another way that we can do that is to pass a resolution in the New Hampshire House or Senate to support the CORE Act and spark hopefully some similar bipartisan action in state houses across the country. But just kind of top lines on this, the CORE Act would expand Americorps over 3 years to 250,000 members per year. Right now, we're right around 75,000 members. It would provide some flexibilities to stabilize national service programs during this economic crisis and allow them to grow and respond to dynamic local recovery needs. It would increase the Americorps living allowance to 175% of the federal poverty line. Right now, we've got a lot of people who say, I can't do a service year because I can't make the dollars and cents work. The cost of housing, cost of living, and the stipend, they don't match up. And so this would hopefully remove the barrier for folks from all different socioeconomic backgrounds to be able to participate in these programs. And that's part of the brilliance, is that we've got diverse young people that are serving in the programs. We don't want it to just be folks from affluent families. It would invite participation by a diverse range of Americans by launching an awareness and outreach campaign and extend priority enrollment to members from underserved populations. So another effort there to advance equity as part of this legislation. It would encourage programs to recruit locally. Oftentimes people do a service year program from another, in another part of the country. This would encourage us here in New Hampshire to recruit more New Hampshire residents to serve in these programs. And then you do a whole bunch of other things, but just New Hampshire specific, based on 365 Americorps members serving right now in the state, the CORE Act could mean up to 730 members serving in the first year, 973 members serving in year 2, and 1,217 Americorps members serving across New Hampshire in year 3. Every Americorps member would receive an increased living allowance, an education award. I think that's one other thing I didn't mention, is it would double the education award. It would be either twice the federal Pell Grant, or it would be equal to 2 years of public tuition for an undergraduate degree. So there's a lot to like about the CORE Act. I think it's like the single most important thing that we can do to advance the conversation right now, and look forward to working with the governor's office to hopefully put some pressure on folks in Congress to include in the next federal stimulus bill. So I've thrown a lot at you, and excited to see what questions you might have and really kind of engage in a conversation, but appreciate everybody being here and your interest in this. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to do some things to really strengthen this ecosystem that is just starting to emerge. We've done a good job of starting to pull together some of the pieces. We've got more work to do on developing strategy, but New Hampshire really has an opportunity to lead on this, and I'm really proud and grateful for the commission for doing this work and for really setting a foundation from which we can build moving forward. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. And thanks, Gretchen and Dan. Really appreciate you all taking the time to talk about this and the important work of the commission. It's something near and dear to my heart. I was an Americorps Vista myself in Portland, Oregon with Portland Youth Build. And, I know the National Youth Build headquarters is just down in Massachusetts there. So I'm surprised that New Hampshire doesn't have any programs. That definitely seems like an area for growth. So I see we have some questions going on and a little bit of conversation already in the Q&A. So we'll get that started. The first question we have is from Yulia, just asking if you can discuss a little bit more about the programs and financial support for some of the work and training and development that's going on.
Yeah, so beyond the stipend and the education award that are offered to specific members, or the Serve and Learn program that Dan talked about, there hasn't been a whole lot of support for professional development. I think there's some small efforts that the state commission is able to support across the state. There's usually a Americorps opening day, where Americorps members from across the state come together. Martin Luther King Day, there's some professional development that happens. But that may be an area that we want to, take a look at. One of the things that I really like at City Year is they've got a program called 18-Minute Networking, where they pull alumni and other, professionals from across sectors together to talk with current Corps members about whatever career paths they're excited about pursuing. And it's 18 minutes because they move around to different groups and spend 18 minutes in each group. And it's an opportunity to talk about higher ed, to talk about, employment opportunities. And it's really, a big opportunity to make the pitch to these young people who have been, investing in our communities to try and keep them here, because their energy and idealism and, all the different ways that they might be able to contribute moving forward to our state, sometimes hinge on a conversation that they have in those groups. So I'd love to see us kind of scale that program, or to make that to be the type of thing that we can include all AmeriCorps programs in the state to do a larger one. And this may be the time to do something like that, where, everybody can be meeting virtually, and we can do some Zoom, breakout rooms and bring everybody back together. Usually the conversation is, well, where can we meet where we can bring everybody together? And so this is one of those times you got to embrace the silver lining of Zoom and try some new things out. So I'm just spitballing there, but that's one idea that I have.
I would also add that all of the national service members in New Hampshire have access to the Governor's Conference on Volunteerism, which happens annually. And we really do work to tailor sessions specifically for national service members, as well as more general. But then in addition, each program provides training to their members and regular meeting with their members.
Awesome. That's great. And it's wonderful that there already are these opportunities, and it sounds like in the years to come, it's just going to keep growing. So next question we have is from Dennis. Is an effort being launched with all the sister institutions in USNH? We working more system-wide?
Sorry, is that question for me?
I think for you, for maybe for Dan a little, just I guess, yeah, in what ways are we coordinating across the system to provide these opportunities?
Dan, you want to try?
What I could say for Serve and Learn, at the very least is, as Matt said, one of the silver linings here is this is an online course. At least the first one, and it is obviously accessible. We're actually primarily seeing folks who are not UNH students enrolling in this course, and that was part of the idea, right? Was to get folks that are engaged in the COVID response effort. So from that perspective, certainly anyone across the USNH system, so long as they qualify based on those criteria, are welcome to register for these courses, and they should count at their own universities as well.
Great. So we have a couple questions from Faina here, asking about Americorps members and whether they get some kind of subsidization for their housing needs, and also a request to share. Maybe we can share in chat if we have the link available, or maybe move off. Okay, just sorry. Still looks like, some text. Maybe Gretchen, if you'd like to talk a little bit too about, whether there are housing subsidies for Americorps service, and then maybe Matt, if you wanted to piggyback on that, speaking about housing inaffordability and what's been done so far, how that connects in with service opportunities.
Sure. So there is no housing subsidy for Americorps members. There are various kind of ways that we've approached that. There's still so much work that needs to be done, I think, to make housing affordable for members and for all of the citizens of the state. But I did put a few suggestions there, and kind of put a few things in the chat. There's an Americorps roommate finder Facebook page. We're always looking to build resources there. Diana, you said that you would be willing to be a renter to Americorps members. A lot of renters in the areas where we have a concentration of members like to pass their apartments on to incoming members each year. Oftentimes it is a kind of clusters of members trying to support each other, with roommate situations. But I think certainly in the more rural areas, we've had more of a challenge. And I'll let you speak to that as well, Matt.
Yeah, here in Manchester, we actually worked with the city to get a variance on a downtown building that had been abandoned. It used to be home to Serenity Place and is essentially a rooming house. But the city didn't want a rooming house in the middle of downtown, so recently renovated and reopened it as specifically for Americorps housing. It's a communal living facility, and in accordance with communal CDC guidelines for COVID-19, needed to limit capacity there, but eventually it will be open to up to 16 members who are serving in downtown Manchester with affordable rents that include, Wi-Fi, all utilities, laundry, a kitchen, and shared bathroom. So excited about that development. And, I think it can be a model for what's possible in other places. My dream is to take a program like Youth Build and a model like the service dorms that we have in downtown and replicate that in a few other places, by partnering with municipalities across the state. So I think we've got a real our work cut out for us, frankly, in terms of making sure that housing is affordable, because it's a number one barrier, especially for someone that's moving from out of state, to figure out where to, who should they be reaching out to? How do they find their roommates? I mean, I think some of the infrastructure exists, like Gretchen talked about, but we've got to do more if we want New Hampshire to be the number one destination for young people to come and do a year of service and then stay for an affordable, degree or credential and a meaningful career. And that's really the goal here.
Thanks. Yeah, and affordable housing, huge issue. We've talked about it in the coffee and conversation space before. Some of you may have been there back when we were still meeting in person. But that's definitely an issue to tackle, and it's interesting to hear how that connects, with everything, but yeah, in particular with service here. So we have another question here from Kevin. So the impact of COVID on smaller rural communities is likely to be quite dramatic, particularly on small downtowns and main streets. Would you consider post-COVID community economic development visioning, planning, engagement to be a viable serve and learn opportunity, particularly for folks coming out of the Carsey graduate students?
Could you just repeat that one more time, Jordan? I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Yeah. So would you consider, post-COVID, would you consider some community economic development, visioning, planning, engagement efforts? Would that kind of work be a viable serve and learn opportunity?
Yeah, I think, most definitely it would be. The question is always kind of how do we do this and how do we serve these communities? I'll speak for the Carsey School itself in that, a lot of what we're attempting to do right now is obviously using online as an opportunity to reach folks that cannot make the drives to campus and things like that, right? But there's also, efforts throughout Carsey to show up in those communities. Our civic engagement arm through New Hampshire Listens is certainly engaged in the North Country pretty extensively. And a number of, our students obviously know this, and our community partners know this. We do a lot of capstone projects throughout our programs. And the one that particularly comes to mind for that is our Masters of Community Development Policy and Practice. And our students are engaging in community development work in a substantial manner. And it's important to keep in mind our students tend to be mid-career professionals with a good deal of experience already. So they're rolling in with a background and experience in that work. But partnering with communities in the North Country and partnering with communities across New Hampshire is something that we're familiar, with doing. And we would certainly be open to having those conversations and figuring out how we could do that, even better than we're currently doing. Yeah, no question.
Great. And this is kind of a related question from Jason here for Matt. It says, it's great to see this going on in New Hampshire and you as a champion for this in the legislature. Jason was involved in K12 Learn Serve in New Hampshire back in the late 1990s. And he's asking how much of this activity is targeting Northern New Hampshire. There's some conservation type programs that were popular before 2000, but some of those went away after 9/11 and there was kind of a shift towards disaster preparedness. And so he's, curious about how rural communities and youth might be targeted and engaged in these service efforts.
Yeah, it's a great question. So two programs come to mind. One is the Student Conservation Association's Americorps program, which they're based at Bear Brook State Park, which if folks who don't know this, this is kind of a fun nugget, but Bear Brook State Park was built by the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s and 40s. So it was built by the hands of National Service members, and it's something that we continue to enjoy. And they're obviously a really important part of the National Service Movement's legacy, especially right here in New Hampshire. And as a music fan, I'll tell you my favorite venue is Red Rocks, which was also built by the Civilian Conservation Corps. So many great, landmarks across our country that were built by the hands of National Service. There's also the Lakes Region Conservation Corps. And Gretchen can probably share a little bit more about it with us, but they've got members that are doing conservation work. And so, that's still continuing to go on in the state of New Hampshire. When it comes to rural communities, there are a couple of people that actually are on our commission who I think are really great resources for this and are both very enthusiastic about exploring possibilities for expansion into the North Country. One is Dr. Charles Lloyd. Chuck is the president of White Mountain Community College, and he has had experience managing National Service members, several times over the course of his time there. So he'd be a good person to talk to. And the other person is Stephanie Lesperance with Campus Compact. And Stephanie was part of an effort with the Service Year Alliance. I forget who else partnered on that, but they developed a report with recommendations for rural communities on expanding national service. So we can find that and maybe include a link when we email out to attendees here, because I'd also love to include our report with some final recommendations and a link to the Serve and Learn program. Some other resources that we can send out your way for people that are interested in continuing the conversation. And people should know that I'm always happy to talk about this kind of stuff. And luckily we're building it so more and more people actually want to talk about it. So, let's definitely keep in touch, and would love to hear folks' thoughts on how we can do this in a way that really makes sense.
Excellent. Thank you. So folks have more questions. I think we've hit the end of that queue, so feel free to add any more. I'm just taking a look at the chat here. Yeah, sounds like some connections are being made. Folks are working together, which I think it sounds like, a big piece of the work here is really just building the basic infrastructure. And so it's fantastic to see where this is starting. I'm curious, Matt, if you think 5-10 years down the line, where we'd like to be. I know you've talked a little bit, about some of the COVID adjacent things, and a little bit of the long-term vision, but where do you think, where would we like to be in 5 or 10 years with regards to service? And what's something that attendees to this webinar should be sort of carrying with them, just maybe in their back pocket, thinking about, so when the topic of, community national service comes up, what should they be holding on to and sort of taking with them in their own work and lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing that we should just be thinking about is how, if we believe in all the benefits of a year of national service, especially when brought to scale, if we believe that that can be transformative, not just for individuals, but for our entire, country, and specifically the state of New Hampshire and the communities in which we live, we need to be looking for opportunities to really, put national service one in front of young people as a viable option for after high school. I think, as a young person who wasn't sure if I, what exactly I wanted to study when I went to college, my parents really pushed back on me when I said I want to take a year off and do a year of service. Now they encourage my younger cousins to jump in and do a year of service before college, because they know the value that has in terms of, finding purpose, building skills, and showing up more prepared to, focus in the classroom and really, get your tuition dollars worth. And I think that there's sort of that like cultural piece of how do we make this sort of a, an opportunity that at least isn't frowned upon, because there's so many benefits, but is really something that's encouraged. And I think we're trying to do that by, again, kind of strengthening this ecosystem and bringing more partners to the table to align. I think that, this group in particular, there are folks from all sorts of different, industries or in communities across the state. I think we just, what might be ahead is this committee that will continue the work of the Service Year Workforce Commission under Volunteer New Hampshire. We need to have some convenings. The listening tour that we didn't get to have in the spring still needs to happen. And whether we do that virtually or in person, once it's safe to do so, I think we need to get some small groups of people together to start developing innovative programs for new programs that either exist in other communities across the country, or that could be unique to New Hampshire, that really solve problems, but provide and connect to workforce pathways, through higher ed and careers. I think clean energy is something that I've been thinking a lot about. There are some really cool programs specifically for Opportunity Youth in New York City and in Philadelphia that are either apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship programs. And they're really great, union jobs that come out of those programs. If you're, doing the kind of the soft skill building of, making sure that we're, that folks are learning the skills that are necessary in a 21st century workforce. So I'm hopeful that we can, this is just kind of the tip of the iceberg. Where we go from here, I'm not really sure. I think we, but what we're doing is planting the seed. And that was the goal with this commission, to really just, try and get everybody on the same page about what we're talking about here in the first place, and then figure out how different communities want to, either take what exists and connect it to college and career, or to develop some totally new things. I think one other thing I just want to kind of plant as a seed is teacher recruitment can be really challenging in some communities, and would love to work with school districts to connect some of our city alumni and other Student Conservation Association does some work in schools. Folks that have some classroom experience through their service. How are we giving them preferential hiring when it comes to trying to keep them here? So a few ideas spitballing. I think we just got to keep the conversation going. And again, I'm happy to do that at any time.
Great. Thank you. I don't see any further questions, and we're just about at the end of our time. So I just want to say thank you again, Matt, Gretchen, Dan. Really fabulous to have you here this morning with us to talk about service and serving and learning and earning. And really appreciate you planting the tree, because the state needs it. And I think in these times when we're all far apart, I think it's more important than ever to think about the ways in which we can come together. So really appreciate you all being here. And thanks for everyone for attending. We'll see you next month on December 9th. We will be talking about a different commission, the Education Funding Commission, and the work that is being done. That report will come out on December 1st. So that'll be a good look at the work that's been done over the last year on that. So thanks, everyone. Hope you have a fantastic Wednesday and a fantastic week. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Jordan.
Take care, everybody.